Return of the Mac, Michael Mac, that is, 4057 asks, this very important question. Would love a Pat and Peggy type frenemy relationship between these two. Now, currently on your screen is Cindy Beale. My cursor is not showing. You have Cindy Beale on my left and Elaine on my right. And they read as follow. I just think this would be a fun way to go with both. What did you say?
No, sorry, just burped into the microphone. Apologies.
Oh, I heard, I know. That's a weird way of saying you agree, but fair enough. We all agree in different ways. And the McIntyre, Mac just reads, I just think this would be a fun way to go with both characters. Now that George is out the picture, it would be interesting, even if they bonded as friends. We see Elaine help Cindy and the Albert. Albert would be good to see that happen more. Elaine never suited being in the Vic, however, energy would suit the Albert a lot better. I also have actually liked Cindy so far as the owner. They both camp in different ways, so it suits. I obviously think at first it would be frosty, but they find some common ground. Obviously they have George, but they could rely on other stuff and become friends. I feel like Cindy needs friends outside the Beals. I knew this would make her feel like a Walford resident.
Calder says she has friends inside the Beals. Nobody likes her.
And I think a good route to go down with Cindy in general would be going like Pat. Pat started off pretty villainous character. As years went on, she became kinder and really family woman with her grandkids, etc. Still fiery and had glimpses of her past self, but overall softened and was more likable. It would be good to do this with Cindy. Have her be close with her grandchildren and be there for her kids. Don't completely wipe away the villainous streak, but as I say, soften it. Elaine, I also think, needs storylines away from her family. She's not really had a proper one of her own. That is not related to someone else. I feel like the few times we've seen her vulnerable era, vulnerable, so I think they should lean into that. Overall, I think they could be a comical duo. They could still bicker, but form a nice friendship like Pat and Peggy. I'd even say you do the Pat and Peggy get high in an ice cream van again, but with these two.
You do something like that. You do them get really pissed, like one shift. Also, if I'm holding all my hands in the air, it's the only way that this camera will actually focus properly. Look at how garbage that looks. Then I do this, and then suddenly, bomb, and actually looks good. So if I'm just waving the arms about, I'm not trying to show off the gains from the gym. I'm just trying to make the camera not be atrocious. I mean, as someone who has both been Cindy and Elaine's biggest believer, supporter, I love both of them. And I love both of them together. And when Elaine was going to get moved out of the Vic, which I do think she suited fundamentally, when she was booted out of the Vic, you did kind of question, what does she do next? Because she is a big, bold, loud, and proud character. She is theatrical. She kind of she always acts like she is on stage, which is a great part of the character. But once you take that stage away, do they just wilt away and die? Like, what do you do? What do you do as a performer when nobody's going to see your performance? That's kind of what you pose. But then, and as I was suggesting and saying that they should have done before, you bring Cindy and Elaine together and you have them work at the Albert. And that is exactly what they did, because they realised that now that George is gone, now that George is out the way, they have this ridiculously strong and engaging chemistry where they are just shitting all over the other person. But they kind of enjoy it in another way. Like, they like the barbers back and forth. It keeps them on their toes. They like bantering back and forth. Now, they don't necessarily like each other, but they like what each other bring to this dynamic. And they're going to need each other in its own right as well. And this is where I do somewhat agree. Now, first, I won't lie. In the end, sure, Cindy can be like Pat. But you also need to have that strong Cindy edge. Because once again, you don't need to completely remove the parts of the character that make Cindy Cindy. Because Cindy inherently is an unlikable, pretty bad person, always selfish, and will always choose herself over her family. It's just how it is. It's who she is. It's why her and Ian are so well suited as such, because they both are selfish and want more. And they should always be like this, because that's the core fundamentals of the character. But in that same way, at some point, she probably will have to stop. She won't be getting the villainous storylines anymore at some point. At some point, she will just become Patrick, essentially. She will just be there every now and then she'll have an occasional big storyline, but she'll mostly just be in the background, being like a nan. And that's fine, but that's not yet. You know, you don't bring back Michelle Collins to have her do that now. Do that in 10 years. Do that in 20, maybe. I mean, I don't know how old she is, but, you know, she's got time. She's got so much time before you neuter Cindy from being who she is to who she could be. As for Elaine, I think this is the making of Elaine. I think because she was decent in the Vic, but she was always hampered by the fact of, first and foremost, you needed somewhere to put all the bad characteristics of Linda. You needed to take them off Linda and give it to someone else, and that was going to be Elaine. So you have Elaine, who's a bad mom and a bad parent, and doesn't really take Linda's needs seriously, and will always choose George over her, and she'll always choose her performance over her. That's who Elaine is, and that's fine. And it was a kind of necessary piece of Linda's makeup to kind of make her, you know, way more likable. Simply because Linda spent so much time being unlikable that once you take off most of the negative characteristics, she's actually pretty good. So, but in that same way, you kind of like neutered Elaine's development, because she had to keep being a bad mum, and she had to keep facilitating Linda's bad decisions. So by doing that and choosing everyone but Linda, kind of makes Elaine a whole lot less likable. So in kind of removing her from the fact that she's a bad mum and putting her back on a stage like the Albert, where she can, I mean, already I think in last week's episode, when this comes out, they already have her playing around with a rainbow fan, which is fantastic. Like her and Johnny are talking. She just like flips out the fan and says, "I was never going to stay off stage that long." Some theatrical pantomime line, essentially. And, you know, it allows her to be a main focus. It allows the Albert to kind of have a higher status, because, you know, say what you want about Kathy. Kathy was one of the most underutilized characters since she was brought back from the dead, from the grave, and they still didn't use her. They brought her back to do nothing with her for about a decade before actually I say decade, you know, 9 years before she became prominent. But it brings Elaine and Cindy, two very prominent characters, very prominent in the previous era. Now they are front and center at the Albert, an undervalued, underutilized set piece, an underutilized location. And it also kind of leads for a lot more dynamic, and sometimes a good partnership's what we want. I've been kind of harping the same drum for a while, but good friendships in soap are they've been lacking for a while, and you need these core friendships where, for the most part, they're dicking about. They're not doing anything serious, they're not talking about anything major, but for that one rare moment where they actually need a bit of comfort from one another, they will take it, they will go there. And for it to be Cindy and Elaine, two people who've formerly been at each other's throats, perpetually, do not like each other, and have all this built-up hatred and animosity towards them, to have them just bar back and forth while still kind of putting on a performance, kind of like, it brings it to the next level. And with all that kind of being said, this is why I kind of see the Pat and Peggy sort of friendship forming, because they have differences. They have things that they have opinions about what the other has done. I'm sure Elaine still resents Cindy for trying to split up her and George's relationship. I'm sure Cindy hates Elaine for not allowing her to get closer to George and ruining her chance at a reconciliation. I'm sure both have a lot of problems with each other. But when they need each other most, they are who they rely on, because Cindy's family hate her, and Elaine doesn't really have much family, so you need that kind of fallback. to kind of have that dynamic. And as Piggy said earlier, I want to see their version of getting high in an ice cream van. I want to see their version. I want to see their like stupid enemies turn to friends comedy. I want to see them like get mixed up by a supplier, so they have to sell like 50 sailor hats with like every pint of some bollocks like that. You need to kind of play with it because despite Cindy's reservation, Michelle Collins can do comedy. She can do laughs. So like you would be remiss to not make it a big part. And I think it should be a big part because this partnership could one day be an iconic pairing. And, probably not anytime soon. But imagine like Cindy gets ill, then suddenly you get to see a more vulnerable side of Cindy. You get to see Elaine actually supporting a mate because as much as she may have hated her in the past, now she's actually come to rely on her and come to actually appreciate her despite their differences.
I'm just asking a question.
Yeah.
Did you record this?
Yeah.
Oh, thank fuck. Because my OBS completely just fucking crashed. And I didn't want to interrupt you because you were going on a lovely spiel. And I felt like a dick if I went, as I was saying, because I have to wait for OBS to reopen.
Not time for me to actually do camera switches now that they're necessary. Sorry. I'm just recording it for clips, really.
Yeah, true. But I do want them getting high and like imagine them getting paid. No, I'm just saying this because I was in London. Imagine them doing a tiki bar night, and they've been given too many tiki cups, and they have to sell like a lot of them, and they just get pissed during a shift, and they're like completely like, God, like, oh, who'd you sleep with, Cindy? And then Cindy's like, would you believe it if Ian Beale fathered a kid that wasn't even his? It was fucking David Witch. Isn't he some bollocks? Like, fucking look at the egg on his face and just being like that. I would like to see. I don't know what else, because I do feel like you do kind of have them be the Pat and Peggy of this like era. No, I could be completely wrong, but I feel like it would work. Like it's not gonna feel like forced. Like they're going, this is the new Pat and Peggy. You slowly just gradually show these two becoming more and more friends, and then slowly you can have someone like Ian, do the in-universe joke, being like, "Right, you two getting along reminds me of like this old Mitchell woman and old butcher I used to know." And it's like, what? Yeah, you won't understand the line. Well, you kind of make an in-universe reference. But I don't really know what else to say about this because I'm just kind of pissed that my OBS crashed. So I'm going to leave it there. If you have any ideas of what you want to see down below, let us know down below. We will see you in the next one. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.